Thank you very much indeed, Ceann Comhairle, and I'd like to thank all those who took part in this second stage of this debate, and I don't doubt for one moment that all of them are looking after the interests of their constituents, or indeed the interests of the nation as they see it, and that the contributions to this debate have been sincere. I don't agree with them all, but they've certainly been expressed in terms which are moderate and sensible, and which have shown a knowledge for the workings of the airport and the airlines, which I think is very welcome in a debate of this sort. And I look forward to the passage of this debate through second stage this evening, and I hope to herald an early committee stage in January. And I think that's what's planned, and I think we will be able to thrash out some of the detail there. And I've said quite specifically to deputies that if there are constructive, improving amendments to this legislation, we would welcome them. I'm not under any circumstances putting a bar on amendments, but what I am saying is that the passage of this bill is certainly urgent for reasons which I think everybody understands, and it has indeed got something to do with the delay, for which I've taken a certain amount of blame. Let me say this about the delay: the delays that occurred in this legislation were mostly legally led, because the early decision to appoint the IAA was one which the Attorney General found was not legally sound, and advised against going ahead with them as the choice as the competent regulator. That was as frustrating for me and the government as it is for the members of this House, a frustration which they are now expressing very eloquently. However, I'm somewhat at a loss as to what they're advising I should have done in the face of that advice. Had I said, well, that advice is flawed, had I said, I'm not going to take any notice of this advice, and gone ahead with a decision to appoint the IAA, what would those deputies be saying to me now? They'd be saying this is an irresponsible and reckless attitude to one of the most important decisions which I have to take in this job. They'd be saying that this would be judicially reviewed, it would be challenged in the courts, it would be delayed, and God knows where it would be going for years. That would have had some justification, and I would have had to justify taking a decision against legal advice from the highest legal officer in the land, and I would have been challenged on it, probably with justification. It would undoubtedly have been inviting challenge by taking a decision of that sort, and we would be in a much bigger mess than we would have liked to have been in. So I defend absolutely, without equivocation, the decision to take that legal advice. I would have much preferred if it hadn't happened. But that was something which, in the light of events that were happening elsewhere, the Attorney General took. It was a decision which the Attorney General took. I, along with others, decided that Fingal would be an appropriate independent regulator, a noise regulator after that. And that has, I agree, it has provoked and prompted some very good questions, some very fine and very, very fair questions. But I don't accept the situation which is being presented to us that in some way Fingal will lack the independence necessary to carry out this particular function. We had, I think it was Deputy Bruin, he's not here now, but he said that 40% of Fingal's income comes from the airport. I don't know where in the name of God he got that figure. The figure I'm getting coming through is 8%. And I'd be happy to discuss it with him and discuss it with him on committee stage. But we get, in debates of this sort, we continuously get figures like that flung around, but not actually backed up by any authority or expertise. So I think it is wrong to quote figures which have absolutely no backing or which are not, as far as I know, supported by evidence in a debate of this sort. If it's 8%, it's a long way from 40%. And I do appreciate, I think it was Deputy O'Dowd, I do appreciate the necessity that he makes to make sure that there is no conflict and to make sure that if data is coming out which might conflict Fingal in any way, that should obviously be prevented. I don't think it's going to happen, but if there was a danger of it, sure, let's make sure that any information is ring-fenced if it's necessary, and I'll make those representations at the appropriate time. Whatever the merits of Fingal, and I stand absolutely firmly behind it, I don't think anyone is challenging the independence of the ABP Bord Pleanála as the final appeal. So we do seem to have a pretty strong, very, very robust system of adjudication, one with which I'm totally satisfied, although I accept that DDs from the area should be expressing those views, and I hope to reassure them that it will make a very fine noise regulator. On the issue of noise itself, I'd like to say this. Several of the deputies have been representing and voices the views of the residents of the area about how difficult noise has been for them and living under that kind of pressure for many, many years. They're right. It's a different type of existence to live, I suspect, with, I've never had to, but I suspect with airport noise disturbing you on a regular basis. But to suggest in some way that we're rushing rushing in a decision against any kind of representations in the face of all the representations of the people of the area is just not true. The DAA certainly has been carrying out consultations, very serious, and consultations with the residents on a regular basis of this, and you may be critical of those consultations and may say that they don't get the results for the residents themselves. I think it was Deputy Bruin asked me, would I meet the residents of St Margaret's? Well, I have to say, since I've been in office, I've met numerous residents from your area, Deputy Ryan and others, and Deputy O'Brien's and Deputy Bruin's, I think, maybe. But I've met representatives of residents' associations. I've met representative travellers who are affected. I've met representative farmers who are affected, specifically coming to inform me and consequently my officials and others about the noise situation. And all of those have been referred by me to the DAA after taking conspicuous note of what they had to say. So it would be absolutely wrong to say that somehow that they are being ignored. And another thing which I should say about the debate here this evening, in the light of the really genuine concern of residents, is this. There seems to be, and I think it was Deputy Farrell who said this, there seems to be some sort of a narrative that a new regulator will change the conditions, will take a different attitude to noise and to the second runway. Deputy Farrell's right. It would be just completely and utterly wrong to second guess what the noise regulator is going to decide. It would be wrong to do that. We're not doing that. We're not second guessing that. We don't know. The noise regulator will be utterly independent and free to make a decision, as will Bord Pleanála when the appeal is made. We don't know what decision is going to be made by an independent noise regulator. And to assume that something will be different or the same or better or worse is wrong. We actually don't know what it's going to be doing. What we are doing is we're responding to a European directive. And we are appointing someone who we think is the best possible entity to do it. What decision they make is something which is an unknown. That's what regulators do, and that's what good regulators do, and we're perfectly happy to accept that. We may not like their decision, but we're going to have to abide by it. Apart from that, I think I accept the fact that a lot of what the deputies have said is very welcome. It's very constructive, and nobody in this debate wants to see a situation where the airport's expansion is in any way obstructed. Dublin Airport is an absolutely vital part of the infrastructure and the connectivity which this island has an absolutely compelling need for. And it would be absolutely wrong to do anything to obstruct it. We must facilitate it, but we must be sensitive also to the views of the residents and also the independence of any decisions that are being made. And with other means of transport, it's very important that they connect to serve the people of this country, but also the people from abroad. And the prosperity of the nation, to a large extent, depends on our connectivity, both sea and air and hauliers. And it is my job to see that Dublin Airport, as by far the main transit point for passengers, is working to full capacity. And that's why any move to delay any legislation of this sort would be irresponsible. And I don't want to see that happening. But responsible decisions have to be taken within that particular framework. So let me just say I look forward very much to, within a responsible and constructive atmosphere like the one that we have had here today and yesterday, I look forward very much to a committee and report stage. I would just say thank you to those who've made good suggestions. I would say again, put down amendments which are in the national interest. The government will certainly welcome them, because this is too important to become some sort of a plaything for local interests, and I don't think it's going to be that. And the government will certainly respond in a very constructive way to suggestions from other parties and groups if they're going to both help residents and also act in the greater national interest of encouraging, of keeping aircraft flying in and out without obstruction. Thank you.